Well, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, people of all ages, welcome to the stream.
On Tuesday night, streaming
On
about what are we streaming about?
Stuff and Things
The
with
stuff
Aaron
and thing.
and Kenobi.
That's right. Which is all you really need. So I mean,
Yes. All you need. You, all you need is us. So, anyway, hope everybody had a good week so far. It's only Tuesday.
I know it's that day. It's what is it? It's not. It's just before Hump Day, right? So I guess Tuesday the dreaded.
Yeah, usually I can tell how things are going to go by this point of the week. So,
Uh, yeah, usually I can tell. I did see the Doctor Strange movie. That was kind of
I
interesting.
did as well. Maybe we could
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Give us your review on it.
I liked it. I kind of wish Captain Carter didn't die. I really liked that character. She was my favorite in the What If, and I feel they should do an entire series out of her. I don't know. I just think her costume. When I saw it in the movie, I'm like, yeah, take her. And then, I mean, she's in a different timeline, so they could say she's in this timeline. I mean, they could always make it, but I just saw the Captain Carter, especially when she had the little jetpack. Like that was a cool idea, jetpack
Yep.
and the shield. I'm like, okay, like I really like that. I still couldn't get over the fact that the guy from The Office played Mr. Fantastic. I think it's just because I always see him from The Office. I've just watched it too much. I'm like,
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of
be good
people who
Jim.
cast him
Yeah,
way before. There's a
I think
lot
he
of fan
works.
cast in there.
Yeah, I think he works. He's always going to be Jim from
Yeah.
The Office. Yeah, so I am not necessarily. So I'm not.
Did
I'm
you
like,
ever see
okay,
A Quiet Place?
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Um, I like.
That's where my impression of him started to turn.
Yeah,
And
I
then
thought
and
he
then
was.
after that I watched Jack Ryan, and that was pretty good.
Yeah,
It was really good.
he's much more actually. I think he's doing that for a few seasons. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at Bruce Willis. He started as a comedic actor, and then he went into like this action star. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. They can do that. It was just weird. I didn't expect them. I had not heard they wanted to play Mr. Fantastic. I saw him. I was like, oh, that's Jim from The Office. Okay.
Well, seeing as
So
how
yeah.
we're talking about it now, I liked it. I think my expectations were a little bit high,
Yeah.
a little too high. So I was expecting a little bit more to be revealed, but that was only a small part of.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked the movie. I did. It's probably the best thing since Spider-Man, which some people really liked it, some people didn't.
Oh, you
Most
mean the
people like
last
me.
one, the
Yeah,
No Way Home? I think
I
that's.
really, I really liked, I really liked it, but man, I just, the way they kill characters nowadays, and I know we're dealing with a multiverse, and they
Right.
can pull these guys out of whatever timeline, and then I don't know if you're aware of this, but they have the multiverse, which is alternate realities, but there's also the time verse. So
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
got it explained somehow or the other. I've yet to hear the full rundown on it, but I just really hated here they've revealed these characters that people have been waiting for, and then all of a sudden they kill them all.
Yeah.
Like with very, very visceral deaths, not just simple little. I mean
That's Sam
they,
Raimi for you. Sam Raimi. I
yeah.
mean, when I heard that he's the Evil Dead guy, then I'm like, oh, okay. Uh-oh. Mackenzie showed me. That is true. We will cry a little on air. On air, we will tear up a little bit. Yeah. Some of the deaths were intense, and that there was a bunch of I mean, Evil Dead. There was a few Evil Dead references. I
I
mean, just
really like the horror aspect of it, but I just, I don't know, those deaths like yeah,
like
and
the
like
one with the way Agent or Captain Carter died was like, okay, yeah. Um,
yeah, that seemed a little over the top. Another one that seemed over the top for some reason was seeing Professor X. Uh, Black Bolt, that was pretty intense, but
yeah.
you don't really have a connection to him as much.
No.
But Captain Picard, that was
Yeah, it
pretty,
was a little. What did you think about the idea that they made the Scarlet Witch some sort of evil entity instead of just because her code name was the Scarlet Witch, and this one they almost made it like the
she's
Scarlet Witch
separate.
was a sort of like Dark Phoenix type character,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I felt that was a little like something had overtaken her, and I mean in the comics there's always that Wanda was mentally unstable because of just the tragedy she's went through. So I
Hmm.
almost don't think she needed to have some sort of evil book overtake her. I think it would have been just fine to have her have a
Well,
mental
for me,
breakdown.
I think the only thing that I had an issue with, and I'm glad they didn't push it too hard. They just kind of mentioned it here and there.
Hmm.
They didn't really seem to push it too hard, was because if they would have pushed it harder, I would have had a problem with it because it kind of seems at this point as a little bit of an afterthought. Like, yeah, yeah, what if we do this? It's like
Yeah.
I would have liked, if that was the case, I would have liked to seen indications of it prior to this. You know,
Right.
because that's something that you don't just fudge on. You don't just come up later and, oh, and this whole time she's had this elder entity, inside of her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's something pretty big to kind of leave out early on.
Right.
Uh,
So
but
I
yeah,
kind of
if they would have pushed it harder, that would have been a problem for me. But I mean, I like the idea of it, but it
yeah.
would have been better if they had started it earlier.
Or something like that. Yeah, because she even the way she took herself out was very much. It's almost like they did the Dark Phoenix saga in the Avengers a little bit with the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah,
And
that
I'm
you
like,
didn't see her die
okay,
though. So I'm
yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
thinking,
that's always unless you see the actual, um, body. I guess they can, and I just assume they could get it from a different universe or whatever. Or I mean, she can
well,
come back
I think going
magically.
forward, if we see her anymore, it'll be the alternate one,
Hmm.
because she's still good, fully
Right.
good. She's not tainted. She's not ruined or whatever. I never was a big fan. You mentioned the Dark Phoenix earlier, or the Phoenix
Yeah.
Force, whatever. I never was real big on that. I think it's, though, I don't think it's because of the contents of the story. I
Yeah.
know that it was a turning point for a lot of people because
Yeah.
they killed a staple character and they pretty much kept her dead for years. And then they started trying to bring her back and did all kinds of craziness with her. But I think what it was for me is just because I think I was out when it happened, and then I came back, and I don't know. I think I just heard so much about it, and it was spoiled so much that I think I just got a little bit of Phoenix fatigue because they
Yeah.
mentioned it so much, and
It seems to be the only X-Men story, and it's bizarre. Out of 200 plus ish, I'm thinking 200 because of Claremont, but like all the stories out of the X-Men, it seems to be the one they just latch onto. And it was, I mean, it was a big story, but I mean, there's like Fall of the Mutants. There's a ton of X-Men stories they could draw from. So I never understood why this adamant focus on the Dark Phoenix saga, like why that was such a huge wasn't really sure. And it's funny. I was kind of not. What I was kind of wondering if they were going to tie the Wanda thing in and bringing the mutants into the
well,
Marvel
see, that's what I
universe.
was talking about
Yeah,
my expectations
I thought you were gonna do
being
something that.
high.
Yeah,
I thought, yeah, this is gonna be it right here. This is where they're gonna,
because they brought
and
Professor X in.
they kind of did, but they really didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, they did, but I don't know. I was expecting a little more. Oh, look, there's in some of these universes, there's mutants.
yeah,
Boom, they're he's dead.
right.
It's like I
That's what I
don't
was
know.
kind of hoping because I know in the comics Wanda kills most of the mutants, but maybe they could take that same concept and maybe she does something to make
See,
mutants
I
or
was
I don't know.
expecting
Yeah.
that. I was expecting something like that. Something.
Yeah. Because they brought Professor X in, so I'm like, well, okay, you're teasing the X-Men, obviously. So,
I
so
really felt like this was like a precursor movie. It
Yeah.
seemed like I was being taught about more. It seemed like this movie, the purpose of this movie to me, when I was watching it, after a while, I felt like I was just kind of being schooled on the rules and the kind of things that we were going to be expecting to look forward to
Right.
in upcoming movies. That's what I felt like. I didn't feel like anything. I mean, I don't want to say I don't feel like anything changed. A lot changed, but I'm saying it just felt more informational. And look, this is kind of just a tiny snapshot of what you can expect going forward. We got mutants, we got the Fantastic Four coming, we got all these things. They were just kind of like hinting at,
Yeah.
um, and all these what if stories that you didn't think really meant much. Well, look, here's there's some validity to those, and those characters that you saw there, you'll see them again, and or could possibly see again. I want to
Yeah.
see more of Agent Carter myself as
I
well. I
thought
I,
that
I
was
liked
awesome.
it.
I mean, that
Yeah.
would be cool if she teamed up with the Falcon or something, like the alternate reality or something, and had I I don't know. I thought I liked her in the What If, and the fact that they put her in. I'm like, yeah, they should do. And I mean, like, yeah, so they offed her. Spoilers if you haven't seen it.
Well, I'm
You know,
glad that they did something with her character because to me, the show, and I did start watching the show whenever,
yeah.
the Carter, what was her name?
Agent Carter. I think
Agent
it's called
Carter
Agent
show.
Carter. Yeah,
I did start watching the show and I watched it for several episodes. And I mean, I kind of liked the show, but I didn't feel like I was really watching anything Marvel related. I just kind of felt
yeah.
like I
It
was
was really
watching something different because I
yeah,
know they had a budget issue and I know they wanted to keep it in a certain frame of, but anyway, I'm glad they did something with that character, and they didn't change a character.
yeah.
I mean, you could make the argument that but I don't think so. Really, I think this is a new character. I feel like that's a new character. I don't feel like she replaced Captain America. I
No,
don't feel
no.
like
And she's
you
an
know, but
alternate, a what
but when
if.
you
Yeah,
know if they take Captain America and it was Agent Carter, now that would be a different story. Now you're like, now
yeah.
this is not a new character. This is you're
I
gender
think
swapping, and I don't like it when they do that.
yeah. I think this movie, and this is some of the Marvel movies, always feel like more episodic episodes. So like you said, a lot of times I'll see the movie and I come to the end, instead of feeling like satisfied that I had something resolved, I just feel like I'm still in the middle of the story. Like there's like maybe one or two things resolved, but there's a ton of stuff unresolved that needs to keep going. And I think sometimes it's unsatisfying to me when I come to the end of one. A little bit, like even in this one, come to the end, and there was all these questions about Doctor Strange, and it was like there was like maybe one thing resolved, and then there's like three or four things like left open. You're like, okay, that sometimes is a little, again, with comics. I mean, I think that's why Infinity, was it Endgame? Is it Endgame or Infinity Wars? What was in the movie where they ended the whole Avengers? The Thanos, was it Endgame? Because that
Yeah,
was okay. Yeah, I can't remember the name. That felt like kind of exclamation point. But even then, they added a whole bunch of like, well, now the Hulk's this and this, and I don't know. Sometimes I like movies. I mean, that's the one thing I did like about this. The last Batman movie, and they do that with a lot of them. But like, even I mean, you can watch that Batman movie, kind of take it on its own. I mean, you could watch the sequels, but you can just kind of be like, "Oh yeah, the Riddler met the Joker," whatever. They closed it enough. I felt, and I think sometimes some Marvel movies do close up pretty well. But
yeah,
this one felt like a little more of a like, okay, this felt more of like an episode. I think sometimes what's weird is there's so many advertisements for other Marvel. I mean, like when I went in, we had like the Thor: Love and Thunder, and then the She-Hulk, and there's so many other episodes that it's almost like I can't sit and focus on this one because they're already teasing me with so much other stuff down the road. Does that make sense in a way?
yeah, yeah,
It's kind of like, okay, let me see this one. Let me focus on this one for a minute, and then I'll get to um the sort of the hype to the other one. Um, I like Doctor. I have noticed, maybe it's just me, but have you noticed that and this is a really stupid observation, so take this all with a grain of salt. Have you noticed the hair in a lot of the Marvel movies is becoming so sculpted that it almost looks like they're wearing like sculpted hair pieces?
I definitely noticed in this movie.
Did you notice that with Doctor Strange? Like, it felt like, is that his real hair,
Yeah,
or is that something that that one I was like, wait, yeah, okay, so it wasn't just me. All right, because I
it
felt
was
like,
it was very noticeable to me.
yeah,
I just kept thinking, if I saw this guy in real life, I would think, his hair
he's
was
wearing a
painted
wig
on, or he
or
was
something.
strange. Yeah, he would
Yeah,
be strange.
yeah. Ooh, there you go. But
Maybe
yeah,
that's what they were
that's
going for.
yeah. It was really maybe it was. I'm trying to think of some other characters that they seem to have kind of, but I don't know. Yeah, it felt like very much like, I think it's the way they do the gray on the side of his hair. I mean, I know
Hmm.
he has gray, but it almost seems like it definitely looks like it is painted onto his hair.
Yeah, and it's very solid,
Yeah, like you
very
could almost just
solid.
take
Like
it off.
it's got a very abrupt beginning, and
Yeah,
it is very deep color, and
yeah,
it's just not natural looking. But I
yeah,
mean, my take on the movie is it was a stellar movie,
yeah,
great effects, great story. Uh, and this is all my expectations aside. I just went into it thinking this was going to be more monumental than it was, because it was
uh,
monumental. We got a lot of new stuff in this movie, a lot of stuff to break up and speculate on and think about. I think I went into it thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if she said, instead of, like in the comics where she said no more mutants. And then that was just like this
yeah.
huge deal in the comics for the rest of the year,
Everything was House of
it's
M.
all
Yeah,
these stories, popping off of that, mutants losing their powers. I was thinking, what if she said no more multiverse and all of it? And this is where we get all of them coming together. Some people changing, some people, everything being one universe. And here we have, we got the X-Men coming, we got the Fantastic Four coming, and they don't all these people don't know each other, and it's like almost like we're starting over again,
yeah,
but they didn't do that. And that's what I was expecting, something similar to that. But maybe I'm trying to rush things a little too much. What I came away from was is that, like I said before, this was informational. Hey, here's the multiverse, here's what you need to know about it, here's the rules of it. And coming down the line, we've got these characters and these teams and these kinds of people. And we've got these incursions that you can look for that's going to shape some stories going down the line. Probably going to see the Illuminati again. That's what I got out of it. But it was a
yeah.
solid movie, beginning to end. It was a good movie. It was a horror type. Uh, you know, I really liked that, and I thought it should
Yeah.
have been, because Doctor Strange has always been,
Have horror
you know,
elements, and it seems to
yeah.
fit Raimi's directing style. I mean, look at all the creatures. What was the name of the octopus that he fought in the beginning? Because I know that's the main character, and I kept forgetting. I
I
want to
don't
keep thinking
remember,
it's like called
but
Shub
I rem-
Nigroth, but I don't think that's it.
I remember seeing about that it is that kind of, but they had some licensing issues with that,
Okay.
so they didn't actually say that that's who that was. And if it would have been who that was, he is actually much bigger and much like Doctor Strange wouldn't have been able to kill him just the way he
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
So it,
Because I
it
remember him.
was and it wasn't. So
I'm gonna put
uh
Doctor Strange. Now I'm just curious. I like.
but they said that if they would have actually there was a licensing issue with that, and if they had have actually gotten him in the comics, he's a much more, put it like this, Dormammu, the guy you're talking about, Dormammu trained under him, the octopus.
Okay.
That's how big of a character we're talking about.
Yeah, his name is
This
Shuma Garath.
Shumagorath, yeah,
That's okay. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was kind of a callback to him, but then again, not really him. You know,
Yeah.
he would
So
not be something that Wanda could be controlling and sending after people. Put it that way. So,
yeah,
but
that
the way they mix this stuff around, we may not
yeah.
ever even see him. Um,
I mean, the fact that it was a throwback to him, or like throw,
yeah.
yeah. I would love it if one of the bosses or bad guys in this show was one of his, like, Shumagarath or Dormammu or one of these elder god type things. That's what I'm kind of waiting for, because I know
Hmm.
he, like, more of him at, like, fighting on the astral plane or in the magic universe. Even though you have the multiverse, I would love him to do like a straight up, like, defeating these huge magical monsters or gods. Like they still feel like they're kind of like, Doctor Strange is still kind of man of magic. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of, especially in the comics, a lot of his fights and stuff happen on outside of the realm of Earth. And so I
Hmm.
would love to see a movie where they just straight up do him fighting outside the realm of Earth, fighting all these other creatures or whatever. Because
You
that,
notice you notice they had the Ultron
yeah,
bots, Superior
look just
Iron
like,
Man bots, and they even said, they were even saying Ultron. I thought that was cool, but no Iron Man. They
yeah.
purposefully did not, out of all those characters, they didn't show any Iron Man or
And it
so.
was funny because I was kind of like, I told my friend, I'm like, yeah, those Ultron bots is actually what Ultron looked like in the comics, not the
Hmm.
original one in the movie. Which I still think those are much more
I
menacing looking
wish
than the
they'd
one
put
in the
out
movie.
some figures of those drones, man.
Yeah,
Because I
because
have an Ultron, and Ultron by itself, what is that? I mean,
he's got to have his army of drones and stuff. But yeah, I always thought he looked much more menacing with the skull facing like in the movie than with the way they did him in the Avengers movie. He just
hmm
looked like this sort of Terminator robot, and I thought that was really cool. Uh,
yeah, I think they should have really went more in with
the
the
skull.
shield, yeah, the shields on the sides and yeah.
Yeah. I didn't like the fact, like, in the second Avengers, I was not happy how they did Ultron. I thought he was a little too quippy and goofy. When Ultron to me was just like the Avengers version of like the Terminator come back to continuously try to kill him. And he just keeps getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah,
Um,
I had questioned that as well. Because in the comics, he's more direct and more
right.
computer
And
kind
just
of,
more like vicious, more just, yeah, he's
yeah,
like
more
more
malevolent.
menacing. Yeah.
Look, I'm here to destroy all organic
Yeah.
beings. Period.
I think they
Um,
kind of missed the boat on that one. I mean, they could do another Ultron, but just the way they did. I mean, the thing was, I remember in the movie, all the Avengers were attacking Ultron, and it was supposed to be most of the Ultron
I'm gonna
stories I
share my
remember is the
screen.
Avengers are all attacking Ultron, and they're trying their best even to defeat the guy because he's so strong. And I would have loved to seen that, like the Ultron just defeating them right and left.
Well, I know in Secret Wars, it took Galactus. I mean, he started trying to cause trouble immediately. Ultron, when the Beyonders set them all down there,
Mhm.
I mean, Ultron was like immediately going after everybody. Like,
Yeah,
oh, everybody else is looking around like, what are we doing here, and how do we get here? We just appeared, and oh, look, here's the bad guys over here, and here's all the good guys. And Ultron's like, okay, you're all gonna die.
yeah,
I'm gonna kill you all. And he starts causing trouble, and Galactus steps in and just whiffs him out because he's got of course, the
yeah,
power cosmic. He can do stuff like that. Uh, yeah, he's pretty strong in the comics, Ultron. Um,
yeah.
but I had watched some videos about that and about him being quippy and having a
Hmm.
personality and all that kind of stuff. And supposedly that what they were going for was that he was like Tony Stark in some way, and that's why he
Okay.
actually would get angry in different scenes whenever somebody would say, something, about him being, you know, and he would even use terminology and stuff like he would. And that what they
Mm.
were going for was like, Tony Stark being like his father type thing. And he,
Okay.
and he didn't
I can
like the
see
fact.
that. Yeah, I didn't catch that when I watched it. I can kind of
Yeah, I
see
didn't
that.
either, and I was wondering,
Yeah,
why they did him the way he did, and that makes sense. I mean, that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
I always
And I,
liked them better. They've never gone down. They really never focused in on the Pym storylines where he created Ultron and he was mentally unstable and he transferred that to Ultron. And there's a lot of, it seems like Hank Pym characters kind of, he was a major character in a lot of the Avengers stories, and it seems like they've either kind of changed her or like
yeah, they really had that dude
yeah,
together in the Ant-Man movies. I mean, he
yeah,
he was really all together in the comics, man. That dude was a mess. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, and so that's the one thing I was kind of hoping they would do more in the movies, because I always like the fact. I mean, they've kind of done it with Wanda, but they've never really let Wanda have almost like a mental breakdown. I mean, she's upset. I mean, WandaVision, you can maybe argue she did, but it was just more of like she just had such tragic loss. I did think the one thing, and even my friend said it, she was wondering why they didn't put Vision alive in one of the multiverses.
yep.
And I was wondering that too, and I wonder if that's just the actor did not want to do it, or maybe because I was wondering when she went to the universe with the good Wanda, I'm like, well, is she married to Vision, or? But they never said one way or the other, so I was like, okay. Um, and
Yeah,
it
it's like
seemed,
she forgot all about him, huh?
yeah, it seemed like you think she would, instead of trying to get her kids, that she'd be more into going to the old multiverses to find her to get Vision back.
Yeah.
But she never even mentioned him, which I thought was, okay. Even my friend noticed that. I was like, oh well, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't quite. Now, strangely enough, did the maybe I'm reading this wrong. Do you remember a creatures in the Marvels called like the Shire Rats? They would have these tongues they would spit out and like basically like suck. They would like connect to your forehead and suck things out. They were like an enemy of Ron, but in some of the X-Men comics they would use him. There were these monsters.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
There's quite a bit that I missed, though. I would come in and go out, and a lot of times, what would happen is I would miss stuff. I would pick up what I picked up
Yeah.
because where I'm from, it's probably the same way for you and other people as well.
Yeah.
But uh, I was in a small town, and comics just until we finally got a comic shop when I was in my teens. By that time, I was kind of out of comics a little bit.
Right.
So, because I mean, just I remember trying to keep up with certain issues and I just couldn't. And it was real frustrating. And
Yeah.
really, the only way that I could keep up with Spider Man was because I had so many friends that liked Spider Man, and I would get theirs. I would borrow theirs, they'd borrow mine, and they were kind of self-contained type stories, and that's really a lot of my comic book reading during that time was, Spider-Man. First, Secret Wars through my
Yeah.
brother. We had all those except for a couple of the issues, so I was missing a huge chunk of the story. That's why I went back later and actually read it. But Spider-Man was always pretty easy to come by just because of
Yeah.
friends. But as far as trying to find the books in the store, you had to be pretty lucky, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Mine were kind of sporadic. I'm still that way now. While I'll buy an issue, go into the store, and there'll be like 3 issues ahead of me because I'm just horrible at keeping up
Well, I
with books.
actually, I hated it then, and there's some parts I hate about it now, especially when you know certain people are giving out all this comic knowledge that I never knew about that sound really interesting that, I need to go pick up that back issue or whatever.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it kind of fueled my creativity because a lot of times, when you don't have the story, what do?
you
You
fill in
kind
the
of
plot
just
holes. Yeah,
you fill in the plot holes, you put two and two together, and that's how I would roll a lot of times, and I think that helped me a lot. As bad as it was, uh, as sad and depressing as it was, being raised on the streets of a
yeah.
small town. Nah, I was not.
The Shire Rats, what I remember, were magical beings. They were like these little hunched over. The reason I bring it up is the heads of the four monsters that were protecting Wanda in the show. Their heads looked very much like the design of the Shire Rat heads, and I was like, huh.
Huh.
I wonder if that, and I don't think they were not, but I remember them in the comic when they fought the X Men. They were like they could do spells and stuff. They were like little hunched over. They kind of looked like the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal, kind of hunched over with all this, and they would do. And I thought they weren't buff like that, but the head design looked the same. I'm like, I wonder if that was a throwback to that. They were like the main enemies of Rom the Space Knight. So I used to read Rom. That's why I got into him. And yeah, I was just
Now,
kind of
see,
curious. I
he's
wonder if he
another
was a
one that I know has got a real rich comic history.
yeah.
I know there's a lot of rights issues with him, though, right?
Yeah,
Or
IDW has the rights to him, I think now, and I read their comic and it was okay. I remember, it's Rom's been so long. I remember a little bit. I remember he had a girlfriend who was like a same sort of knight, but it was gold, and he was just kind of like this guy that would travel the interstellar pathways. And I think his main enemy were these dire wraths, if I'm not mistaken. I just remember as a kid, I really liked the design of him, and so I would collect and buy comics of him. I thought he just looked cool. Um, but every once in a while he'd show up. But I think Marvel lost the rights to him, and I thought Marvel created him, but I guess that was not the case. It was probably somebody else that created From. But I know did try to bring him back, and then it didn't take, or they did a little like 4 or 6 issue miniseries with him, and then I never saw anything else from IDW with Rom in it. Um, like I said, the series is okay. I guess I would be curious, and maybe they have put all the ROMs in an omnibus. I don't know what it would take to go back and collect them all. But I remember him being, he was almost kind of like a Silver Surfer type character, except he just kind of roamed the spaceways, defeating these creatures where he saw fit. And then sometimes he would come to Earth. I can't remember if he was actually a guy in a suit or if he was supposed to be a robot. I don't remember, and I don't know that. I'd have to
hmm.
research that. So, but yeah, I thought he was a cool kind of intergalactic character.
Rom, the space kitten.
Yeah. So I did see the Avatar trailer. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Excited for Avatar. I think he do a good job. I saw the Predator teaser trailer that came out. They called
I have
Prey.
not seen that.
That's actually pretty cool looking. If that sticks to what they're showing, I think that would be a really cool movie. It's coming straight to Hulu. Um, I've heard rumors that they might do something else. I hope they don't. I hope they kind of just make it stick to realistic. The guy who directed did 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is really good. So I really like his movies. He did something else, and I can't remember. And so I'd be curious to see how that works. They've always hinted that Predator is hunted in time, and I'm happy they're finally taking advantage of that fact and showing like different periods of human history where this thing has come in and people have tried to defeat it, which I think is a cool
Well, I hope
concept.
they do something really good with it because, I
Yeah.
mean, now I don't want to get any hate for saying this because I don't know. I don't know who
Uh,
these directors are or anything, but it just seems to me that some of these properties like those and Aliens, there for
yeah.
such a long time, it seems like they have gotten the B-list director actor treatment.
Yeah.
And, those are some really solid characters and really good,
Right.
solid concepts, I mean,
You could do a
for them to
lot
be
with them.
treated that way, like, well, we'll just do whatever because people will buy it. That mentality, has
Yeah.
really, really soiled that franchise or those franchises, and it's really a shame. I hate to see it when that happens.
Yeah. I think I feel that too. I feel a lot of them. Um, I know Blomkamp or Blomkamp, I can never say his name, was going to do an Aliens movie that looked fantastic, and then he's not doing it anymore. But he did release his concept art when he was doing it, and I think was actually going to bring Hicks and Newt back. And there's a lot of characters. There's a lot of rich
I
history,
remember
but
this, and I was really excited about this, and
yeah,
they even put out a game and everything, and
and
I
then
loved the game. I
yeah.
played the game. Man, I was really excited for this, and it just fell
Mhm.
flat.
They gave it to Ridley Scott, who went off in his own direction, and I didn't like the direction Ridley Scott went in with that. But there does seem like a lot of properties where Terminator even got some B-list movies where
Yeah,
they
see
and
that one, that's another one that should have been so much better.
yeah,
All the iterations should have been so much better. It was a cool concept. It wasn't anything new.
yeah,
It wasn't, but it was done well. And I just, I don't care what anybody says to me, James Cameron, he is just, man, he is boss. He's had,
yeah,
some issues, there's been some that just didn't work,
yeah.
Waterworld. But that dude is solid, man. Usually whatever he does is going to be pretty good.
Well, he didn't do Waterworld.
Who was it that did Waterworld?
That was Kevin Costner, I think, took over that project. Let me see
Now I
here.
know
No,
that Kevin Costner was the actor on it, but
yeah, yeah. I because it seems like something he would do. Kevin Reynolds was the director on that one, right?
yeah,
Director of Waterworld, and then but I know Kevin Costner kind of took that over. Yeah, it seemed like something he would do. There was one called
maybe I'm getting mixed up with what was it? Abyss?
Abyss. He
Was
did
that
do
James? Yeah, okay,
that. Was James
that
Cameron? He
must be
did do
where.
that one.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I did, and then that one I liked, but I don't think that was a critical hit he wanted it to be. Not that I remember. Titanic and stuff, and I mean even Avatar. I mean the guy has like what some of the what, Avatar, Titanic, some of the top selling movies of all time. Like
Well, I tell you about that. He is very into oceanography
oh
and
yeah,
deep sea.
yeah,
And like, I watched a documentary that they were doing about his personal uh, work on the Titanic and
yeah.
just
He
all
found
the
it, and
stuff. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He That's something he is really passionate about and really into.
yeah.
And I think that shows when you do something and you have a real passion for it. It really comes out in what you produce.
I think so too. The one thing I do like, and I think Cameron's in a stage where the studios can't mess with his vision. And I think that's important. Listen, if any movie studios are listening, sometimes letting the director do his vision can work wonders. But no one's going to. I mean, when you see a James Cameron movie, you know that movie right now is all James Cameron. There's no studio cutting him off because he doesn't need him. He could
Yeah, he'll
distribute the
walk.
movies if he would. Yeah, he'll
Yeah,
walk. He doesn't need him. Lucas and Spielberg are almost the same way. I think there
yeah.
is power in that. I wish there was more directors who we could see more pure visions from, and not have studio interference.
And it seems like they give the reins over sometime to people that just,
I have
I
no
mean, these
idea.
people are unproven and, yet they give them A-list treatment and they just really, muck things
Botch 'em.
up.
Yeah, yeah. So I know I'm excited for the new Top Gun this weekend. I grew up with Top Gun. I know some people can dig. I know a lot of people. Oh yeah, Top Gun. I'm like, oh no, I'm excited for it. I like
Boy,
Top.
I watched that movie over and over when I was growing up. Man,
Yeah,
love that movie.
yeah. So I'm curious to see what
And
they
I
do with
watched all the B-list movies that were made,
like
Iron
Iron
Eagle
Eagle and all of
with,
that. Yeah,
what's his name? I can't remember his name.
I
He's a
think
good
it's
actor,
Louis
but
Louis
yeah,
Gossett
Lou
Jr.
Gossett Jr. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I looked him up to see because I never know what happened to him, and he's still around. We always wondered, like, for some odd reason, I could have sworn somebody connected to Iron Eagle had passed away, but I guess I misread that somewhere. Like one of the actors that were in that but I thought it was him, but no, Louis Gossett Jr. is alive and well, as far as I know. So
Huh.
that was my mistake. But I don't know where I heard that rumor. Pick up a rumor here and there, and next thing you know, you're like, oh wait, yeah. So yeah. Um.
He was Morgan Freeman before Morgan Freeman was Morgan
Oh yeah.
Freeman.
Yeah, I was funny. I was rewatching that Enemy Mine movie um
Yeah.
the
Some
other
he's
night. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was watching it, and boy, a lot of the visual effects, especially his makeup,
Yep.
really still hold up, man.
It
Louis
really
Gossett
does.
Jr.
It really
Yeah,
does. I have seen that movie not too far back, and I was really impressed that it checked out, still checked all the boxes.
yeah, yeah. It was. I used to watch it. That was one of the movies like Poltergeist. I was constantly on those movie channels when I was a kid. Like HBO would show the same movie like every day for like I think Enemy Mine was one, Poltergeist, and all these movies. But they would always be on. You always watch them. I got to memorize that movie after a while.
Well, I tell you, one thing about older movies that I mean, it seems like the older movies, the ones that we grew up with, they had some characters in those things that you would take. I mean, that would just outlive the movie.
Oh
For
yeah.
instance, you just said, Poltergeist. What
Hmm.
what are the characters you remember in there? I especially remember the psychic. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, they're
But
here and
for the
that
rest
lady.
of my childhood, whenever we'd clean the house or whatever, the rest of my childhood, this house is clean.
I know
I
it
mean,
was. I
they just
can't.
don't they just don't have that anymore. I mean,
These
uh,
weird
eh,
stand-up characters that are. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That have. Um. Yeah, I remember Poltergeist the girl, but I remember always that the psychic lady. It was weird that then I watch. It's always weird to watch those movies and forget who's in it.
yeah,
Like the guy who played Coach was the
yeah,
dad in that, and I'm like, oh god, that's right. Like you see, like it's weird to watch Enemy Mine. Like Dennis Quaid is so young in that movie.
yep.
I'm like, oh, that's right. That was
I
Dennis
can't
Quaid.
believe how little, though, even though he was so young, you don't really realize how much that dude has aged unless you go back and watch one of his movies from way
Yeah,
early 80s. It's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah.
There was another one he did. I don't know if you remember this one, Dreamscape.
Oh yeah, Dreamscape was
Yep.
great.
What I
Yeah,
liked about that movie is, and I don't remember much about it, but I remember it. It was something that I had never y- never seen before, and
yeah.
it opened up a whole avenue, whole area for me.
I always liked that. I always thought they really did a good job in that movie with the dream, the way they did the dreams, how they would flow in and out. It felt like a dreamscape. The
Yeah,
other movie that did a really good job at that was The Cell with Jennifer Lopez. Did a really good job of like
yeah,
that. That feels like a dream. Um, yeah, Inception tried but didn't really, and that was always kind of like because the idea if like your dream it would be things would change minute to minute and it would feel like a stream of thought and stuff, yeah. So but yeah, other than that, well, we are at the hour. If you want to, we are 9 o'clock, so we can talk some more or we can.
let's go ahead. I think the subject for tonight, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I
Yeah.
think was, and I think it's pertinent to tonight. I certainly have some stuff to say about it. If it
Mm,
is indeed the subject we're supposed to be talking about,
yeah.
was balancing, um, or trying to do comics and lead a busy life at the same time, working jobs and
Yeah.
doing this kind of stuff on the side.
Yeah, I think that was it. And if
Yeah,
not, we'll just talk about that because I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
yeah. So obviously, we've got some people absent tonight for different reasons. We've uh, of course, I'll just let them when they come back tell you what those reasons
Yeah.
are. They're all good reasons, but what it really comes down to is as much as we enjoy doing, even this right here, what we're doing, and I'm not just talking about me drawing, but the streams, is we really enjoy doing what we're doing, but at the same time, we got bills to pay, got stuff
Yeah.
to do, got family to take care of, got obligations and stuff. Um, Now, there's some people who have braved the unknown and just thrown, you know, they're all in. That is not me. I have a family I have to take care of. So that sometimes has to take, or all the time, has to take precedence over my playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had to do that juggling now I'm juggling multiple projects at once. Um and
Yeah, you're all in, huh, Aaron?
I am all in on some stuff. So yeah, I'm juggling multiple. So it's weird cuz sometimes I have to try to like I feel like I'm trying to give, each one enough focus and not just,
So
you
you
know.
would say that it's hard either way, right? it can get tough
Yeah,
either way,
even
right?
this, if you have multiple stories going on in your head, you're like, okay, because you get excited about one, it's like, okay, but I have to focus on this one and this one and this one,
Well, I
and
guess
you
if
just
it was easy, more people would be doing it, and the others of us wouldn't be so scared to jump off
uh, it's
into it.
definitely yeah. I mean, sometimes I will say, especially when a lot of the projects are related to comics, it makes a little, like I said, I used to do motion graphics. Motion graphics works in comics are such different works mentally that it would, okay, that's fine. I could kind of separate it. But when they're all kind of comics or stories or whatever, you're like, okay, you know, I have to give, focus and give it my all to each one when I focus on it, when I set the time aside to work on it. Uh,
Well, I know with me personally, you'll notice that I've been working on this piece for a couple weeks now, and that's
yeah,
because I have not. This is the first time I've been able to sit back down to it. I've been working late, and
yeah.
this is a pretty heavy piece here. This is a double splash page,
But
and
I
it's
think it'll be worth it in the end,
yeah, it
when
will
you
be
finally
worth it, but it's going to be plenty of work to do until it
uh,
gets there. It's really coming out good though. But what I am doing in my spare time, every spare moment I get, I've got my little magic notebook that
oh
I'm
yeah.
doing all the little designs in and stuff. You'll notice right up here, you got this guy, just a little simple thing, and then you come in here and you see where he shows up there, and
Yeah.
just different ones. And a lot of this though is appearing as I'm drawing. So some of this stuff
Sometimes,
is
yeah,
just
and I
flowing.
actually like to do that. And I'd be curious to know how much do you plan as opposed to just making it up on the page?
I am planning quite a bit,
Okay.
but I'm leaving. Uh, I'd say I plan about 60% on here, but the thing to keep in mind, and I have to keep in mind with this right here, this very page
Hmm.
that I'm working on, one of the reasons why it is taking long and I'm taking the time to do so much of that in that notebook is because this going forward, this is setting the tone. Like, what do these guys look like? How are they dressed? You know, what is glowing, what is not, what is dark, what is bright. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? What is their, how do they move? How do they fight? So there's a lot of things that I'll be establishing in these first few pages, and that's really important because whatever I do, I'm kind of making rules and locking myself into for
Right.
pages that are coming.
Especially if those characters show up again or whatever. I've done it a few times where I've made up characters and then fly and then, oh, wait, I need that character back again. I have to go back and
Yeah,
um
some of these characters like these are soldiers and they'll change, but like this guy right here, this guy will be
yeah,
all throughout it. So, you know what? Whatever design he gets right here is
that's
what
what you're
he's going to
sticking with.
have.
Yeah.
That horse, a couple of these guys, really what I'm making on this page, even though I'm making so many of them, I'll just is I am making a template for the rest of the comic for the so I have to be mindful that I don't do anything, that I do something that, moves along the story, helps the story. There's just a lot of guys back here, you can see.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much using this page to make a template for all of the guys going forward. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. So it's you have to, it depend, you have to really, I know with me, I have to kind of have my notebook. It keeps me interested. It keeps me going. It helps me not to get fatigued. Um, and it's doodles. I think everybody, especially if you're an artist, you should doodle. It's a good little exercise. It's good mental.
It seems
Good for
like
you
these
mentally.
these knock the barbarian pictures I've been doing is kind of my way to doodle. I have the barbarian guide design, but everything I use just make up on the page as I go along. And those pictures are kind of just about doodling general idea, but then just doodling in. Especially since I don't. I mean, it's a one image. I'm not gonna. They're not gonna be reoccurring characters and anything, so I can just kind of. It was kind of fun. You can get more detailed or less detailed as you see fit, and I do notice that when I draw one off pieces, I can do more experimentation, knowing I won't have to make any justifications or reasons for that. It's just like a one off piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
So I could do super detailed helmets or whatever and just throw that in there and let that sit because I'm not going to revisit that again. At least I don't plan to unless somewhere down the line I. But yeah, I tend to notice that when I do comic book work, I spend more time focusing to make sure everything is correct and flowing, referencing the back. And sometimes it doesn't take the fun out of it, but it makes it a little more. I have to pay attention to more details. And I noticed when I've been doing these one-off pieces with Knock the Barbarian, and when I do other just crazy random drawings, I could just kind of sit there and doodle, like you said, and it's more relaxing to me.
Yeah.
I tend to almost notice I actually get better drawings out of it. I feel like sometimes I get better drawings out of my one-off pieces in my comics, just because I'm not worrying about acting or whatever. I could just kind of cut loose and just have fun.
Well, I tell you, one of the things, and I've talked about this before, that helps me to keep the doodles and not trying to finish stuff out, because that's always been my issue. Is I do
Yeah,
something and I like, man, I wish I would have done this on a canvas or something, some kind of board, and I
right.
want to finish it out. So what I have done, one of the reasons I do this, I only use ink in my sketchbook. I don't use pencil
Yeah,
because there's no erasing, no erasing. That keeps the doodles. And if
right.
I want to go back and fix something, then I redraw it down below. It's not going to hurt me. It'll only help me to redraw something. So that's what I do. That's how I keep it light, keep it simple, and not get too carried away with details and stuff.
Yeah, just kind of watching you draw. That'd be fun to do a big. I know. Are there good like bigger ogres or something in the background? It looks like there's almost like a
Yeah,
horn.
in my initial, these were supposed to be it, but I didn't think that they really showed well enough how big they are. So I'm going to actually make them bigger. So I'm going to do
Okay.
this line right here of people, and then
Yeah, I
I'm
see
going
what.
to like set them way back, almost like over, towering
Uh,
uh, shadows. And of course, as I go back, my lines are getting thinner and my details are getting less. So I don't know how much you'll actually be able to see of them yet, um, because if you really want the scale to be seen, you really can't do a lot of detail. You have to, the value thing,
yeah,
the value rule,
yeah.
which I
So
break all the time.
it's funny. The way you're drawing your. I've been playing a lot of that Gears of War series, video game series, where the guys are all just like huge brutes in the game. Your characters come off a lot like that, which I think is kind of cool. Um,
I have to check that out.
yeah, everybody in that game is just like ripped beyond belief. They're just like these. I'm just like just that they're all on steroids. I guess I don't know. But I think it's just supposed to be kind of that look, making them look
Hmm.
rugged or whatever. Um, like even the enemies you fight are supposed to be like these. I think their first enemy is called the Locusts, and like these underground creatures that come up, but they're like soldiers with guns. So they're like monster soldiers with guns. They got some cool designs in that game. But
Yeah, it's kind of like what I always thought was funny about zombie bears. Like, as if a
uh,
bear wasn't bad enough.
yeah. Now, so this is still the first issue, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
we
with kids.
just started production and everything on it. Sounds so big and professional, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Well, yeah, I think it's professional. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
just we're at a time of year in my work,
well, it all
getting
gets
back to the
busy.
subject where it is very this is like end of school time, so a lot of schools are actually putting in orders for the next year. Also, sports is having playoffs and there's
Mm,
tournaments and all kinds of stuff like that. We're going through that whole rigmarole, and so my work is really just busting loose right now. And so I that's why I one of the reasons why last week I was hoping to get in late, but I wasn't even able to do that because I was getting off, 9 o'clock. I wasn't even able to, you know,
well, you
do
made up for it,
anything.
and Jose and all of them have not shown up.
I
So
hadn't even watched last week's stream. Anything notable happen?
um, no, I think we're just talking about stuff like this. Trying to think. I know Tim, I think Mackenzie and Jose. Jose has had some personal issues going on. Um, and I know Mackenzie has had personal issues too. They should be back hopefully next week. They'll be back. I don't remember. It looks like Infrafan says crazy good inks going on. You're gonna make Quinn's head swell, Infrafan. Um,
You will. And just like when I used to shoot pool all the time, as soon as people start saying stuff like that, I'm done.
I'm done.
I'll never make another shot.
I had a friend, and we had a friend we played video games with. That I still think he was kind of hustling us in some ways. He was the guy like we play Street Fighter, off or like it was four of us and we play Street Fighter, and then he would be like, "I've never played Street Fighter," and then he start whipping all our butts, and I'm like, "Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
I had a
like
friend like
what?
that.
Are you hustling us? And you yeah." So I don't know.
And I
I was
had the
like,
friend that was the know it all. After he beat you,
uh,
he would tell you what you were doing wrong. I was like, man, shut up. Just shut
I know.
up, okay?
Let me just play my game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had a few people like that sit down and explain to me in detail what I did wrong. I'm like, thank you. It's a
yeah.
game.
I mean, if I were going to take the time to do that, I would be like, well, first of all, your first mistake, you sat down with me to play.
I know.
I just go all in.
You know, you cannot beat the Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I did this to a friend, and I didn't mean to. I came in and he was playing the old video game Strider. I don't know how many on here remember Strider,
By
and
the
he
way,
was.
thank you, and for fans. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh yeah,
interrupt. But thank you so much, very, very much.
and he was playing the in boss of the Strider game, which was for the Sega Genesis. I think he had it on his PC. And he's like, he looked at me and he's like, it's like, I haven't been able to beat this last boss in years. I constantly try, never been able to beat him. And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. I'm like, I beat him all the time. He's like, how? Show me. And I went over and within a few seconds beat the boss. And the look on his face, almost like I just ended our friendship. He's like,
Yeah.
that's it. You're out. And I'm like, what? What? He's like, he just could not believe it. I was like, I just made it look so easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that was funny on Dark Souls, how some people would get so locked on certain characters, certain
Yeah.
bosses, and then other people would just go right through those, but
Yeah. There
other
are some
seemingly easier ones they would get held up
stuck on.
on. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
Get on Morpheus. How did I beat you? That should be how did I beat when you play Street Fighter? Looked at him. It's like, is that a controller you think you're playing with? Hmm.
Yeah.
Um.
One was Killer Instinct. There we had a
Oh
friend of
yeah.
ours that was just combo king on that game. Oh my goodness.
That
Uh,
and yeah.
Yeah, he got we had a bachelor party one time and we ended up at the end of it, all of us, just toasted. And he was so out of his head and he was like saying combos and stuff, left, left, right, right. It was so funny.
I
We
still
never let him
remember
live that
this
down.
guy in college. We'd play Quake with him, and everyone was sitting. It was in a dorm room, and everyone we do LAN parties all connect between the dorm rooms. And I remember the drunker he got, the better he got. Like, the
Yeah.
more like, he would just be able to, like, he was constantly, like, sniping us with, like, rail guns and stuff, and I'm like, "Chuck, I haven't even been able to see you." He's like, "Oh, whatever, I saw you jump there." I'm just like, "Dude." Yeah, so it was crazy to watch him, and when you get down there, now we don't wanna play with Chuck anymore, he just destroys us.
Yeah.
He
Don't
did that with
invite Chuck.
yeah, he did that with Street Fighter, um, where he would, like, "Well, your problem was, you know, um, you played me or whatever, because he just destroyed me at Street Fighter. He's like, I thought you were good, and I'm like, well, against my friends, apparently not against you.
Yeah,
You
the
know.
only time that I really went all in on a game and really just learned everything I could was Mortal Kombat 2.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I could shape shift uh, Shang Tsung
Oh
into
yeah, because you had to
every
learn all the
person.
different combos. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so good. But man, I would play that while everybody else is playing other stuff. I just got really obsessive about it.
Uh, I think I remember. Yeah, I got to Mortal Kombat. There was one. I was always the kind of guy that I would just learn all the. I would just rent the fighting games, learn all the moves, play a little bit. I remember the one I really got into was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Not enough to go because people get really, but I just always remember just. And I remember the intro music used to drive my family nuts. It was just like this cheesy song, and I
I
would.
don't like
I'm
that.
not even going to sing it, but it was like they would hear that and they'd be like, "Oh, not that game." I'm like, Leave me alone. It's my game."
Yeah, everybody got tired of the bicycle kick, Liu Kang's
Oh
bicycle
yeah,
kick when I'd be playing. Yeah, they'd be
and that
playing role playing and stuff, and I'd be playing Liu Kang against somebody. It was so funny.
and for friend said he had a friend who didn't know one of the Mortal Kombat games was coming out that week instead of the next, and friend B got the game that week to practice over and over. So the following week, I'm sure he just destroyed him. He's like, yeah, that's how you that is definitely how you do that. I remember people who never played Mario. We kept telling them to jump in the holes because there was stuff down there, and they kept dying. I'm like, oh, it wasn't that hole. It was this hole?
Uh,
Did you ever used to unplug your friends' controllers too?
I have done that. Yes.
Like
Yep.
quietly, and they're like, "Why isn't it?" Yeah. Now you can't do that. You can't. Everything's wireless. You can't torture your
Mhm.
friends with unplugging their controllers and
Yeah,
whatnot.
technology, it messes a lot of stuff up.
Yeah, it was fun doing that. Um,
That was a pretty good troll.
yeah, it was. He apparently said he could pretend he hadn't played it at a friendly game. Friend B still got ass kicked into the control. I that reminds me. I had a friend who it was a coworker, and he kept touting himself as this big action gamer, kind of like what Infrafan was talking about. And I remember when God of War came out, like if I played God, and I didn't care, I was just playing the games because I liked them. It was original God of War, and he's like, "Oh, I beat that or whatever." But I remember Devil May Cry 3 came out, and I was over at my friend's house, and I was just playing through it, and they were watching me, and they were like, "You seem really good at this." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, this other guy that says you're so good at action games spent like an hour on the first level." And it was like, "You're clocking through every level like it's nothing." I'm like, "Oh, okay, what?" I'm sorry. And after that, I think the other guy heard about that, and then it became this competition to outdo me at all times. I don't know why. We couldn't get any
Yep.
visual proof that he did, but he was like, "No, I am the ultimate game master." I'm like, "All right, whatever you want." I didn't really, you know.
My problem now, I used to play a lot of PvP games, a lot of fighting games, but
Hmm.
I just am not competitive anymore like
I'm
that.
not.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
I guess because I just don't get upset about stuff, the way I used to. And I think one of the prerequisites of playing some of those games is you have to get a little upset so
Yeah.
that you will work hard to get better at the game.
Yeah.
And I have the inability to do that anymore.
Oh, I
So,
can't do it. Just like I used to buy like, oh, I bought the newest. I like Street Fighter. I love the Street Fighter artwork. I was always been a fan of the artwork and Capcom's artwork. So I'd buy the new Street Fighter because I like the visual looks of it, and get online and just get destroyed to the point where the game was literally unplayable because everyone is just a grandmaster online.
yeah.
So I would just play the computer, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, I think fighting games were funner almost before online. Like you could play people online, but when I played my friends when we didn't have online, it was the skill of my. I always had the one friend who was like magically talented at all this, and and but a lot of times we were pretty uneven because most of the time when we'd play with each other. So yeah. And for friend says, we all have that friend in the group who sees everything as a competition and missed out on the experience. Yes, yes, we do. I have had friends who there's certain friends I won't play games with just because they get very angry if they lose, and kind of takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah,
Because I don't care if I lose or not. I've always liked more cooperative games,
me too. Yep.
just to get around that fact. Um, just because, but yeah, I've had a few friends who some of them would pout. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, online players all seem to be tournament level. Yeah, they do. And for fan, yeah, I that's the thing. I'm like, and I don't have the time right now to get to that level where I'm competing. I just don't. Um, and so it's I wish I did, but I just don't anymore. Not that I mean, I don't know if any of you guys ever online ever watched this. I think it's Eva tournament. Every year they have like this like fighting game tournament. I think it's called Eva, but maybe it's called Eve. I think it's called Eva.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what and watching those guys do stuff on those games, I didn't know you could do that. I mean, they're doing stuff like I didn't know that was possible in that video game. And I'll just sit around and watch all those guys and just be memorized. I'm like, why do I need to learn any of this stuff when I could just watch them play?
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, especially when I watched like Smash Brothers, which to me I never thought would be competitive at all. But watching those guys play Smash Brothers, I'm like, wow, okay, there's
Hmm.
tricks I didn't know this could do. Um, so
Well, Smash Brothers was kind of ruined for me because it took me so long to get a Nintendo,
yeah,
and by the time I had gotten it, I had watched it being played so many times that I just, by the time I finally did get an opportunity, I just really didn't. I'd seen every trick, and
yeah,
and even though I hadn't done those tricks, I didn't really care to, you know, really go into it.
I do the same thing in Mortal Kombat. Instead of buying Mortal Kombat games, I just when they come out, I just go online and watch all the fatalities and stuff I want to see, and then that's it. I
Yeah,
really should play them, but I'm just like, no, I saw everything I wanted to see.
yeah. Some games are like that. When I miss out on them, like I was really impatient for Fallout 4,
Hmm.
and that was going to be a game that was just going to rule my life, and I missed it because we had gotten busy at
Yeah,
work, and I just could never find the time to. And another thing too was we had two new babies, and so it just took a lot of energy just to survive during that
right.
time. So I just never could pick it up. And then when I did get an opportunity to, I just really didn't care because I'd seen all the. I mean, by that time they were putting out mods and stuff,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
mean,
this.
really good ones. And hey, this is better now that this mod's on here, and you can't get this with the vanilla game. So this, I don't know, just
Talk.
a lot of stuff.
Oh, I'm procrastinating. I procrastinate at playing certain. I don't know why. Like I got Neo, the second Neo, and I waited almost like maybe a year and a half, maybe I don't know, maybe close to 2 years to play that. It just had other games to play, and it was for play. I bought it for PlayStation 4. When I finally got around to playing it, PlayStation 5 had come out, and that was all upgraded, and now I could play on PlayStation 5 in an even better state. So that was the first time procrastination worked in my favor. Most of the
Yeah.
time it does not.
Yep. Well, I mean, I did. There have been games that I followed, and I got them day one, and they were junk
Yeah,
because they. I remember I was waiting, waiting, waiting for Battlefield 4, and they put it out. And when they did, I mean, it was they ended up
train
getting
wreck.
lawsuits over that game.
Same thing with that Cyberpunk 2077. They took it offline. They brought it
Yeah,
back, but they took it off because it was so bad. Infrafan says, "Man, these guys can get to smack talking too." Crow Cat on YouTube does some really funny supercuts of it. Yeah, when you get the people like, I remember I would have people when I would lose in Street Fighter. I'd have people would send me go out of their way to send me messages to
yes.
tell
When
me
I
that you
played
should
Red
block and do
Faction,
stuff.
yeah,
I just
online,
I'm like, I
they
don't
they
know you, man.
yeah, yeah, learn how to play the game.
I just
and
like
yeah, send all kinds of bad, messages.
it was like I just after a while I'm like I'm actually paying to be berated by strangers online. This seems a little
They're
not.
bullying me.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, I remember they would do that, and I'm like, I am blocking, and but everyone was a master at it. Um, yeah, I just play some game. I forget, like I'm replaying Horizon Zero Dawn because the second one came out, and I played the first one when it first came out, so I do not remember much of anything that went on. I could just take a recap, but I'm like, oh, I'll play it. It's a little better and whatever. It's fun to play certain. I have a few times. This is multiple times I played through the Resident Evil series, all in a row. And those games are relatively short if you know how to just do shortcuts and go through them. But it is interesting the little things you pick up playing certain games in order, back to back. Um, and I have done that before. But I've also done it where I played. Oh, I go back and play the old games to prepare for the new one. And by the time I get to the new one, I'm burnt out. I don't game anymore.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
done that to myself too. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. Um,
Video games.
Yeah, I mean, even with the drawing, even with like you keeping up with drawing. Oh, my favorite Resident Evil. Oh man, that's a loaded question. What is my favorite Resident Evil? That's what Infrafan is asking.
Oh,
Oh,
the last one
uh,
I played was 5, and
that
it
was
was
the one.
it
Yeah,
was it was kind of good, but I don't know. It
I
was really different than what I remember because I skipped. I played 1 and I played 2 and I skipped 3 and 4, and supposedly 4 was really good, or
yeah.
something, but 5
Four
was just
was
kind of okay.
Four was the first one where they introduced the sort of the way five played. Four was the first one. I really liked four. I really liked three a lot. I liked the idea of being chased by something you couldn't kill. That was always I remember having fun with that. And they did the remake of three where they kind of did that and kind of did. He would show up at like certain scripted times. And I always liked it when I was, doing something to goof around, the nemesis comes breaking out of a wall, and I'm like, "Oh crap! I got to start running away." That I thought was actually pretty fun. I'd probably say three. I really did like the remake. I do like the older versions with more of the puzzles. When it came more shootery, it was okay, but I did like more of the puzzle aspects to the old ones. There was something about that. And I think they've kind of brought that back a little more in the newer ones, which are first person. I'm still not
They're
sure
first
what I'm.
person, really.
Yeah, 7 and 8 are first person, which I'm still not really sure what I feel about that. I liked 7.
Well, see, that was another thing
It's
with
yeah.
me is there for a while I wouldn't play anything except a first person, and then I moved to other ones as I got introduced to other games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was on a first person kick there for a good while.
Infrared says I still love the top tier version of the original. Yeah, it's so good when they remaster is gorgeous. Yeah, the first one, that was really good. I will admit, as far as probably one of the more intense Resident Evil experiences I've had is playing number 7 in virtual reality. That was a trip. That was really cool. That I really liked. But again, the more I'm thinking, I know they put 4 in virtual reality, but I don't have the system. That's on the Oculus. And I don't have the PlayStation VR. Um, I am playing Doom 3 VR, and that completely changes the whole game. Now I really feel like I'm in an Aliens movie. That's the closest I'm ever going to get to an Aliens movie is walking down those corridors and having all those demons jump at me, like especially when I
Yeah,
open a door and stuff.
I
You feel a
remember
little
that
more,
movie. Yeah, I remember that game. Holy moly!
yeah. And
I remember being. Which one are you talking about now? Just to make
three,
sure.
three. So this is the one where they kind of redid it and they kind of made it more darker and sinister and stuff. And they put the whole thing in virtual reality, and boy, it's a different beast in virtual
Well,
reality.
I remember playing. I don't remember which one it was. It's when they had finally brought it back. And this was back in the aughts. Um, when they actually went from the classic Doom to actual, real good animation and stuff. I
Yeah,
don't know if you remember. I don't remember what the name of it was, but
there was
anyway, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning playing that. And one thing I always used to do when I'd play first person games is, if I ever saw a mirror or anything
Yeah, I
like
try to
that,
look into it. Yeah.
yeah, I'd also try to see my legs first thing, to see if I can see my legs. And of course, if I could, man, this game is awesome, if I could see my
Yeah.
legs. But man, I was 3 o'clock in the morning playing that game, and I was in one of the bathrooms in the game, and I looked in the mirror, and all of a sudden it did like this huge close up, and like your face, like it's like your face rots off of your flesh,
I don't
right?
think I've
And I
seen
was
that.
like, oh my goodness, it was like I was already, spent
I
from
thought,
the day, and then it being so late. Holy
and then
moly!
it just, yeah, seeing that, you're thinking like you're seeing things. There was, as for a horror game, there was an old Silent Hill, Silent Hill 3. That was the one. Usually horror games never really bothered me too much, 'cause especially Resident Evil. I mean, I got a shotgun. I mean, it's like, okay, I know there's zombies in here, but I got a shotgun, buddy. So hey, man, you know,
Hmm.
um, you're not messing with me too much. But I remember one of the Silent Hills. It was number 3. I was trying to solve this puzzle, and I kept going these series of rooms to try to solve it. And I went back through one of the rooms like a third time trying to figure this out. And all of a sudden, like the room kind of went dark. All these black tendrils came off
Oh boy.
the room and like grabbed my character, dragged me down. And then I see the scene of this crazy doctor dragging my corpse off. And I'm like, what? Is this part of the game? What? And it wasn't. Then it just restarted me the game. It was like they just put random killings or random sort of deaths in the game that would happen. That threw me because I'm like, I've been through this room like multiple times. It killed everyone in the room, and all of a sudden it's like, no, the game is like you've been through too many times. And like, I was like,
Ah,
okay, that freaked me out because I was like, what is going on? That was the one. Um, I hope so. I mean, they did the PT demo. I'm hoping they do something. Infrafan says, do you think Konami is serious about the Silent Hill resurrection, or is it just false hopes again? I hope so. Just give it to Hideo Kojima and Del Toro. Let them finish what they started. Um,
man, when they start doing stuff like that, though, I am more scared nowadays than anything.
yeah,
That they're gonna mess it up. You
mess it
know.
up or screw it up. Did you ever play any of the games that would mess with you? There was a game called Eternal Darkness, I think it was called. And in the game, your character could go nuts. But what the
I
game
seem
did
to
was
remember this game that you're
it
talking
messed with
about.
you. Like all of a sudden, it looked like there was a fly on your TV screen, and it wasn't. It was like in the, or it
Yeah,
would
I
flick your
remember this
TV
game.
off and on, like it would turn
Hmm.
your TV. So it started messing with you, which I thought was like just absolutely ingenious. Metal Gear Solid does this a lot, but I always think it's funny. That was the Metal Gear when you fought Psycho Mantis, and you nothing would hurt him, and they eventually figured out if you take the controller out of port 1 and put it in port 2, he can't read your controller, so he can't read your mind, which is
Ah,
just ingenious. And ever since then, I'm like, oh, that's, but you can't do that now because of the wireless. But back then, he would play that. Same thing on he did. There was a code that he had this codec where you would do the radio, and there was a code you had to like put in to get on this certain frequency, and they were like, well, like where, like where was this code at? And it's like on the back of the box. And I'm like, what box? Thinking it's in game, but what it was, the code was actually on the back of the game box you bought the game in. You had to look in the back of the box, and then there's the code in this little window.
wow.
And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. That's great. So, and for instance, I love when games break the fourth wall like that. I would love to do a video essay on that. Yeah, I would love. Those are my favorite, and Hideo Kojima does it the most. But there's been a few that have done that. Yeah, when they break the fourth wall in video games, they do some really. There's some other ones that I've seen them do that on. But the stuff with like the Doom where the face melted away, and I wonder, I bet you that only happens at. It doesn't happen all the time. I bet you that happens like every so many times you look in the mirror or something, just to freak you out.
Yeah,
But uh, stuff
I
like that.
love that game, but it seemed to me to be too quick. Once I finished, I was like, "Wait, is that the end?"
They,
But
yeah, the newest Dooms add a lot of platform. There's some games I really get into, and I've noticed in my time, I tend to like almost like I'm going through and playing the Gears of War games, and they seem to be about 10 hours a piece, and that's usually about okay. Some games I think a little too long anymore, um, but it depends. I mean, open world games are like they always get me. Well, yeah, if you play the open, just the main missions in the open world, the game's like 10 or 15 hours long. I'm like, yeah, but it's like, well, yeah, but if you want to do the side missions, then it's 60 hours. But you don't have to. I'm like, well, if I'm gonna miss like 70% of the game if I don't do the side missions, then why am I playing it? So they always get me on that.
Yeah.
Fez is full of things you have to do in the real world. And X-Men for the Genesis. To reset the computer on a level near the end, you had to physically hit the reset button on the Genesis. Brilliant. Oh, I didn't know X-Men did that. I played one of the X. I don't think I ever got to the end. That's hilarious. Yeah, I remember Fez. Fez was an independent game. Um, but yeah, they don't really. I'm trying to think of the way computer systems are set up. They don't really have. I mean, they don't even have start buttons. Now I think the start button is the options button. I still to this day cannot figure out why they have a start hit the start button screen even in modern video games. Like like why does that, some games have started to do this. They'll go you boot up the game and it goes straight to the menu of like start a campaign or whatever. But there's still some games that have that screen that hit the start button, and I'm like, is that really necessary anymore? I think that's a holdover from the arcades, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's just something. But I'm always like, what am I hitting start for? Why don't you just go straight into the game? Some games are doing that, but there's still a few that has like hit the start button. So
Well, we're moving up toward that like that movie Ready Player One.
yeah,
So pretty soon we'll be going into rooms in virtual reality. Hey, you're gonna go try this new game over in room whatever. That's gonna
yeah.
be something.
Have you ever done virtual reality?
Nah.
Okay.
Oh well, one time I went to San Antonio and went
Mm.
to what was it? Dave's, Dave and
Oh, like
Buster's. Dave and
yeah.
Buster's. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's a
Oh
big
yeah, yeah,
thing over here. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Virtual
I
reality
played
is
a
a good
Star
trip.
Wars game. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it definitely virtual reality has its limitations. It has its advantages. They're still trying to figure out certain things because they're trying to figure out storytelling because in a regular video game even in comics you can direct your eyesight to like you're showing what you want to show in your comic panel. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to tell a story in VR when somebody could just sit around and look around the room the whole time and something's happening in front of you, but unless you know, you could totally miss it by looking around. Which I thought was interesting. I never thought of that. Like if somebody could take your comic and you're focusing on the page of all this army, but if they could just like kind of look around the other comic, the other side of the hills or the mountains or whatever,
Yeah,
they would
like if it
totally
was
miss
open
that
world,
scene.
you'd be like,
Yeah,
"Oh, there's this huge army coming," and then you
uh,
just take off.
take off and
Yeah.
go do whatever you want to
Yeah,
do.
go do
Yeah,
something else. I'll wait and come back after this is over.
yeah. Or you could just bypass the army altogether. Well, I'll just skip that and go do something else. There's no reason to. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how games used to be. It changes game design a little bit. I still think comic design. I know somebody did want to was doing children's books in VR, and I don't think somebody has done comic books in VR. But I'd be curious to see how that would work if they did. They were trying all sorts of. I know the drawing programs I did in VR were a trip because you really weren't able to do I don't think you would be able to draw what you're drawing in there. If it did, it would take a long while. But it was
Like it
weird
is
that
now.
yeah. But you would draw stuff in the air. Like say you would draw this in VR and then you can walk around it. Like 360 around it or walk through it.
Yeah.
It's a trip and I'm like,
I've
"Oh, that's
actually
cool."
yeah, I've seen people do that before. That's pretty crazy stuff, man.
Yeah. So but yeah, I remember architects would do stuff that I thought was pretty cool, where they would actually put a 3D model of the house they were building, and they could actually walk around it and see it. And I'm like, that's really
Yep.
cool idea. Yeah. So
Just
you know,
imagine all the things we're gonna see.
I
And
think comic books will evolve. Cap in 3D. It's I want to see Rob Liefeld's Cap in 3D. Haha, that would be interesting. There was another. Have you ever seen them try to take his cat picture and turn it into like a real person? Then that looks distorted. Um, I will give Liefeld. props for as much crap as that guy's taken. He just kind of takes it in stride and keeps on doing what he wants to do. I think that's why I think I respect Rob Liefeld more than anyone, because he out of all the artists, I mean, he's taken a lot of crap.
Yeah.
But he just keeps doing it because he just likes it. So I give him. But yeah, the Captain America, the infamous one and stuff.
Though I think people, and when you approach Liefeld and some others,
Yeah,
I think sometimes people say a little are a little too critical about stuff. But then
yeah,
again, there's value in that as well, because if it wasn't for all these review channels and stuff that are too critical, then we probably wouldn't get as good of products either. So I
yeah.
have to say.
I
But
have to
another
admit,
thing is him being so famous, there's
yeah.
plenty of artists that they've made flubs, but nobody's talking about them.
Oh yeah, yeah. There
You
was
know, nobody
for instance,
cares.
yeah, he's great. He created Deadpool. He's fine. Oh yeah, I like Rob Liefeld. I just think it's funny. I mean, he just kind of takes all in stride. I remember there was a drawing Scott Campbell did of a mermaid, and it just looked like literally the way she was posed. Her back was broken in half.
Hmm.
It was just the pose, and I mean, you could see it. And people's like, "Well, I don't think it works that way," but he didn't care. And I think you get to the point where you draw so many drawings. If one doesn't work out, you're just like, "Okay, whatever. On to the next one." And you're not gonna fuss over it. You're just gonna go
Yeah,
to the next one.
yeah. In shop class, when I was a kid, we used to sit around, look at Todd McFarlane stuff and Jim Lee, and we were picking up Wizard magazine, and we were going through and seeing who got the best artist this time around. Of course, it was always between Jim Lee
Yeah,
and Todd McFarlane, but we would always come up with, did you see that issue, of X Force that Rob Liefeld did? Man, it's so screwed up, you know.
yeah,
And, but I felt bad a lot later about that because, uh, dude, he really, I mean, he made it pretty early.
yeah,
But I'm not defending him at all or anything. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
He's an yeah, he definitely were. It's fun that I think his at Rob Liefeld's interpretation of Tom McFarlane's impersonations of him just are hilarious. I could
yeah,
listen to that stuff all day. I've never
yep.
seen a guy do a better impersonation of somebody than Tom. That is just hilarious, and every time he does, I just crack up. Um, but yeah. I mean, he never, and the funny thing is, you could say, well, could he change to get better? I'm like, I don't think there's any reason to. People seem to enjoy his stuff still. It's very stylized. He did one we turned Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe and put him in a red costume, and I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. I actually kind of like that. Never thought of, him
I
doing that.
think his strength, honestly, to me, his strength was
Yeah,
his concept abilities. I mean, what
yeah,
he lacked in, drawing, he definitely made up for in his concept for characters. He could make characters because I've seen some characters before that just, I don't know, it that just nothing really jives, with the
yeah,
characters. But he always, he would color just with his colors, with the design of the character,
yeah,
and some people, talk about the big shoulder pads. I mean, he really brought that, made it famous,
yeah.
and it worked. It really worked. I mean, he had just an eye for design, or does have. I shouldn't talk about him like he's, like
Oh
he's
yeah.
passed on or something. But that's something that until later years I didn't really appreciate about his work, is that his design capability was just off the chart.
I always thought his story writing was well done. He was very good at writing these sort of fast, hard hitting action stories. I always thought he would have been a really good movie director of action movies. There was something about his that just felt like he got the ball rolling and got it going. Uh, if your friend's still trying to break in the comics now, I got no room to criticize him. So hard to get anything right. Yeah, it is so hard to
It
get
is,
anything right. Yeah, yeah. And then
and when
everybody has room for criticizing.
definitely, yep.
Yeah, but it's fun to see those guys. I think Image was one of the ones where I think some of the image guys didn't. I mean, so many of the older artists were so big on getting anatomy right, certain things correct, and I think
Oh
image
yeah.
was the group of artists that tried to make things just look cool. And I do think there was a strength to that. I think you can combine those two, but I do think there is a strength to that sort of like, well, yeah, but it just looks cool. And so I think that, you know, I mean, because a lot of manga and other artists overseas will do different type of art. So I think it freed up. I think there was a lot of artists who were very into like, was it accurate?
Well, I think, sometimes people get too preoccupied with certain things, like anatomy,
Hmm.
and they leave the coolness out for the realism. And the thing is, you can't do realism, and to me, it just doesn't work well. There's been a
Yeah,
few exceptions to the rule. I enjoy seeing like Greg Land and some of these others.
yeah.
They have figured out like a good happy medium there, but for the most part, to me, real stuff just doesn't look right to me in
This is why
comics.
Alex Ross was sometimes a hit or miss for me. Just
Yeah.
because it looked so real, where I'm like, but some of his stuff was cool. I mean, he did his compositions, but there's some stuff where I'm like, yeah, it's real, but you kind of have to,
Yeah, but this looks like some 30s show where
yeah,
some guys dressed up, and that does not
yeah,
look cool to me. I mean, and like you got like again, we go back to Todd McFarlane and all them. They're not even worried about anatomy. They're just
no,
worried about getting this particular pose and getting the feeling and the thrust of it,
yeah,
across. And I'm cool with that, but that's a foreign idea to a lot of people.
yeah. Infrared says two words, Mike Mignola. Yeah, I would agree,
Oh
Mike
yeah, yep,
Mignola, and he's able to. It is actually, I've noted, even to me, it's harder to do good artwork with less lines. The more lines you put in, you can cover up little things. I mean, even I've known this. But to do such simple shapes and lines, you really kind of have to know
yep.
your compositions and stuff. Yeah. Um,
And
yeah.
what's crazy about it is the mind, the brain, picks up on shapes and
Right.
all kinds of stuff that nobody intends, but it just does. That's the way it works. And like some of the most iconic characters and character designs, they have such simple costumes and such
Yeah.
simple, uh, you know, icons on them, logos and all that kind of stuff. And here we are trying to match 3D games and all that kind of stuff, and put all these little details and all that kind of stuff. And I'm talking about me as well here. I've always drawn like this, and it's just an issue I have. Todd McFarlane cursed me with this because I saw his stuff and I
Yeah.
was like, man, that is so cool, all those lines. And it's ingrained now, so it's hard to get rid of. I do a simpler version of some of the stuff sometimes, but with this being so gritty, it's hard to not
Yeah, because
to.
he would say like, "You're so detailed, Todd," and he would like, "I just doodle," and
Yeah,
just kind of add stuff on there, and yeah,
but sometimes simpler is just better. I mean, it just is. That Mike, uh, what's it? I don't even. I never can say his last name. I can never say it. Magnolia,
Magnola. I think
Magnola.
that's how I. Now I could be pronouncing it wrong too.
You're
So
wrong.
Mike, if you're out there, if
You're
he's
wrong.
watching this, he's like, "You guys both got it wrong."
Yeah.
Um, and Infra says, "I'm looking forward to the Alex Ross's Fantastic Four graphic novel coming out. He's moving into a star between his and Kirby. Now that would be interesting. I would be interested to see Alex Ross actually
Now
stylize
that
his work
sounds
in some
very
way.
interesting to me.
Yeah. What's that Alex Toth quote? We do something down to its essence and draw the hell out of it. Yeah. Yeah, the basic just the idea, whatever. I tend to like bigger shapes. I know when I draw more. I'm like, somebody said your drawings are very chunky. I'm like, yeah, I'm putting together shapes that I think look cool together. So I'm kind of a line artist, but kind of using line that creates shapes I think are interesting. Um, and stuff like that, which goes into more. And I think a lot of times when you go more cartoon, you tend to work in bigger shapes. As you go towards more realism, you tend to kind of, how do I say, blend those shapes together into more of a solid mass. And more cartooning is more like independent shapes. I mean, like if you look at Peanuts, it's like, you have a shirt, little pants, the shoes, the head. I mean, they're all kind of like these separate little shapes you can take off. South Park is a perfect example of that. I mean, it was all cut paper and it still looks like it, but you know,
I think the first time I really started to appreciate styles, well, like yours or like an animated style
hmm
or any of those things that were not Todd McFarlane, not, you know, Kirby, not
yeah.
Ditko, not, it was probably Scott McDaniel. He did Nightwing, he did Batman, and he has this real curvy animated type style. You just have to look at it. He is the first time that I really started appreciating, because I started noticing that I could actually see the action that he was making the characters do a lot more, because he was kind of bowing arms a little and make,
Oh yeah,
and he was, yeah, it wasn't anatomically correct, but at the same time, you could feel that arm making that hook, you know,
yeah.
uh, and I never really experienced that before. I never really gave it time, never gave it time to experience it. So,
There is another comic artist that I know that does that a lot. He did Luther Strode, and what was it? He's done a lot of stuff, but he will actually just bend uh stuff like anatomically. What is he? The artist. Amazon. I think his name is Trad Moore, was an illustrator, and his stuff is almost like curvature and very unique. And he would, the way he would do like he would draw the legs, but like draw the leg like almost like rubbery.
yeah,
Like it was like,
yep,
and I always thought that was cool. I know I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I think if you keep it consistent, it's
right.
yeah. Yeah, for instance, I feel like I'm close to your style, my style. It's like a blend of everything. I'm glad people have the taste for style variety these days, or else I wouldn't even try to be honest. Yeah, I think that is too. I think there's all sorts of style, and I think people are pushing comics into more of like styles that are not, like I said, taking a little bit of realism, and maybe bending things here, they're bending stuff. I do think back in the past, there were certain comic styles, especially for superheroes, that were like, this is the style, and anything beyond that style is not working. And I do am glad that nowadays that you do see people like, uh, is it Scotty Young? Is he the one that does the cartoon stuff? Am I thinking, um, like doing straight up cartoon versions of comic characters? I think the one person that really kind of broke the mold of the realistic superhero idea was Bruce Timm when he did Batman the Animated Series. Was because he stylized those characters so much
Yep.
and really brought them to a cartoon essence, which again was heavily influenced by the old Max Fleischer Superman
Again,
cartoon.
and there
Yeah,
again, you really feel
the
the
punches and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I love that simplified anatomy. I've got that book. You usually have the same books I have. The Simplified Anatomy book by Christopher Hart.
I'm
I
not sure
love
if I
that
have
book.
that
Yeah, if you don't have it, you should pick it up. It's pretty good. It's simplified
anatomy.
anatomy. It's
Yeah, I
pretty
should probably
good.
play that. Yes, Tim is a huge influence on me. Yes, yes, he's a big influence. One of the, even with the obsoletes, I was trying to do the muscles in there more like the guy does them in Dragon Ball Z. I apologize, I'm forgetting the gentleman who does Dragon Ball Z off the top of my head. But very rigid and stuff, just
You could
making
have
them
said
like
anybody, and I wouldn't have known.
yeah. I Yeah, but he's done the way he does the muscles. It almost look like square blocks. I just like, and like Bruce Timm is a huge one. Who's the gentleman who did the? He passed away, but he was a very much an influence on Bruce Timm's style. He did that big Justice League uh comic. I can't remember his name. Infrafan might know him. Um, but he would do almost like painterly type stuff, and now I can't remember his name right now. Um,
Did he just pass away, or
no, he passed away a while ago. Ah, it's gonna drive me nuts. Okay.
and we need to be ending up here pretty soon
Yeah.
because it is time. I hate to as well.
No, no, I'm gonna. Well, anyone out there listening to this, you probably know who I'm talking about. I just can't think off the top of my head. It wasn't even called Justice League. It was called something else. It was a huge book about like the Justice League in the 50s or whatever. I can't remember. Cook. Yeah, that's right. Cook. Yeah, that's the guy. I can't remember his first name, but and I can't remember the graphic novel. I think his name. It wasn't Tim Curry. What? I know you're talking about. Yeah, he unfortunately passed on, but he was a fantastic artist. But yeah, it's getting down to um that time again. So I think we are going to call it a night. Uh, and of course, once we leave, then that's pretty much the end of reality as people know it.
You'll have to, you know, just
You know?
until the next time, you'll have to just wait on us.
Yeah, I know. Darwin Cook.
Watch
Yes,
reruns.
probably spelled wrong. Yeah, I think you spelled it right. I think that's right. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll just close out here with "Make Mine Silverline,"
Make mine Silverline.
and we'll see you guys next week. All right, bye everyone.
Bye, everybody.